Hello everybody, welcome into the Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore here on the field at Neyland Stadium, where just a moment ago Georgia got a 41-17 win against the Tennessee Vols. I tweeted this out, you get the scene here with the fans clearing out, empty aluminum bleachers as far as you can see. That's a sight that'll never get old. Georgia coming here and overcoming a hostile crowd and obviously a fast-starting Tennessee offense in the first quarter, and maybe a little bit of a slow, sluggish start from UGA, but certainly I thought it was asserting itself in a major way there in the second half. As the #1 team in the country should, coming back, extending that lead in the third and the fourth quarter. I thought today Georgia really showed some impressive championship-level credentials. That's not the same thing as saying that it was a perfect game. It was, as all games are, imperfect for UGA, and we'll talk about some of the reasons why. But in a big-picture perspective here, I actually thought this was a major step forward for Georgia this season, and I don't know there have been many games thus far this year where Georgia proved to me more than it was able to prove here tonight.
I think a couple of things. I think it's a validation game for Georgia. You mentioned when things went perfect, maybe went imperfectly. I thought Georgia handled an imperfect start perfectly. This is a validation game for me. It validates why Stetson Bennett is your starter. Mobility for him in the first half, keyed a lot of drives, converted a lot of third downs, and I think Georgia found another weapon in the offense. Everybody's wondering about who's coming back, who's getting healthy. James Cook has his career night, his signature game for Georgia, and when he's rolling along like that, he was clearly the difference in this ballgame.
And I think really the James Cook name is probably the single most important storyline of the game, and that's with all due respect to a Georgia defense performance that I thought was outstanding once again. But I think James Cook showed you tonight, and we actually talked about this on Dog Nation Daily on Friday, who is going to be that guy that you really call on when you have to do something offensively? You're in a close game. You've got to move the chains, preserve a lead, or try to drive for a score to take the lead. Who's the guy that you can really lean on? Jeff, I think tonight James Cook showed you that he might be that guy for Georgia. With all due respect to Brock Bowers, who's been huge in the first portion of the season, but as you lean more late in the year, it just seems like it's more appropriate for that guy that you really lean on to be an upperclassman. And in Georgia, with the great heritage of being RBU, that idea that you would also lean on a running back there seems pretty appropriate there as well. A lot of folks have talked over the season about this Georgia offense may be efficient, but can it be explosive? Well, I think James Cook showed you tonight that he certainly brings a dose of explosiveness with him. I thought James Cook was the single most important name from the game tonight. I believe that Cook will be the single most talked about subplot from this game. His emergence, the way that it unfolded today, with 3 touchdowns through the air and on the ground, I believe that's going to be the thing that folks should be talking about, and I believe that's the thing that Georgia fans are going to be talking about. I thought James Cook was just at another level tonight.
I thought Cook was really good because, this is the back we thought he was going to be when he came to Georgia. The guy out of the backfield, the guy dashing, making quick cuts, waiting, being patient, looking like his namesake, living up to the Cook family name. I want to point out 2 things. First of all, Dog Nation, I'm sorry I didn't say this in the first 6 minutes or 4 minutes of the show. Nolan Smith's going to be fine. He came back out after he went into the tent. He had ice on his elbow. He went into the locker room, came back out. He was chilling right there by that portable turbo jet engine heater right there. In the scrum afterward, he told several teammates, he told several guys he knew that were on the Tennessee team, he said, I'm straight, doing well. I don't think that elbow, which everybody got a little bit worried about with everybody taking the knee.
Yeah, the video of it, almost like a hyperextended type look or whatever, so that's certainly a good thing to be able to hear, Jeff.
And then one more thing, I want to make sure we talk about this early, because Georgia was getting gashed early, not just offensively, but defensively. And I think Georgia made a key substitution. They rolled out Warren Erickson and they rolled in Xavier Truss.
Big time.
And Georgia looked like whether it was the blood was stopped. They gashed. They had gotten gashed. They cauterized that wound up front, got blocked up really better. Xavier Truss is going to be able to move a little bit more of those 3 techniques out of there at guard. And I thought that, and then you sprinkle in some James Cook. And then you got enough brilliance from Brock Bowers, that catch he made on the sideline. Oh my goodness. I think the only thing more impressive about that catch was how Kirby probably jumped about a head high of Brock Bowers trying to follow it behind the sideline. But I got to mention this Georgia defense. I mean, sure, Tennessee kept going for it on 4th downs, and Georgia kept sweeping them out. I mean, Channing Tindall with 3 sacks tonight, and Kobe Dean with over 10 tackles again. A lot of Bulldogs. Man, we were talking about this week, Arian Smith, Georgia loses a little bit of offensive firepower. Well, you got James Cook rolling down the field like that, then this offense looks even more special than it was before. And I say special because it was already averaging about 40 points per game, and now it adds a little bit more juice to it.
Yeah, and obviously we'll take your comments throughout the night here. It's our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Of course, a lot of folks bundle up in Georgia apparel here tonight. The UGA Bookstore, a great place to go to get all of the apparel that you need as you head towards the holiday season. It makes a tremendous gift for others, but it's also great for yourself because I get the impression that Georgia football is going to be playing a lot more football games here as 2021 draws to a close, pursuing a national championship. You want to look your best when Georgia's playing its best. The UGA Bookstore is certainly the place to go for all that. So UGABookstore.com, that's the website to go to. We'll be back at the UGA Bookstore for a final time in 2021 next Saturday after Georgia takes on Charleston Southern. Looking forward to being back between the hedges again next Saturday. We'll obviously continue to talk about tonight's win, 41-17 against the Tennessee Vols here, and obviously your comments going to be a big part of that. Let's dive in here. We'll take some of this on Facebook here right now. And, you know, some folks kind of mentioning some of the flu-like stuff that was going around. Obviously, Jalen Carter was out because of that. He did come on the field, play some, but then eventually was taken off the field. I guess there was TV reports of as many as 8 guys that were dealing with that. I guess Carter may be the most prominent on that. Anything else you can add to that? Because obviously that was what Carter's absence was chalked up to.
Yeah, I mean, besides those mystery ailments and everything else of guys going down to slow down the tempo of offenses on both sides, I thought, you know, the absence of Carter, Brandon, and then there was an early scare with Jordan Davis. The absence of Carter in that front, you saw Trayvon Walker, you saw other guys that were really trying to go. Another couple of storylines we got to mention is Broderick Jones played the whole game at left tackle. Jamari Salyer traveled, he dressed. You can say the same for Dominic Blaylock, but neither one of those guys were in the game plan. You had a lot of guys. That's what's going around, you know, on the sidelines today, that there were a lot of guys that were really sniffling afterward, were really battling the flu symptoms. And again, I'm just going to couch this one as a big-time adversity win. When things go imperfectly, I thought Georgia's response was really perfect. I think when we look back at this win over the course of this season, I think it's going to be one where everybody wondered, because Brandon, they shot down that field early. They punched Georgia in the mouth, and everybody's wondering, okay, has Tennessee got something? And the adjustments were made very quickly, and Georgia was able to shut down Tennessee.
Billy Hurley in our Facebook comment section mentions that very fact that this week during Dog Nation Daily, I had talked a good bit about the fact that I thought that Tennessee, playing in its home stadium with its offense, would be good enough to challenge Georgia, especially potentially early in this game. And that's kind of what happened here in the early stages. It didn't unfold very much that way. But I also talked about how when that occurred, would this allow Georgia to show something in a different kind of football game than for the most part it's played this year, and it did. And we've seen Georgia trailing now, 2 different football games this season for a small handful of plays against Auburn, by a field goal against Missouri. But it's an entirely different thing when you're trailing by a touchdown against Tennessee in its stadium. The fans want to get loud. It happens early. Tennessee kind of marched down the field, and Billy kind of jokingly said, I can exhale now. And I think there was some of that for me of not quite so much tension with the idea that Georgia's going to lose today, but I was just very curious to see what we'd see from Georgia. And I wanted to see how Georgia played offense in particular in a game in which it was going to need some offense. Today was one of those days that, you know, you're going to have to score some points to be able to win this game, or at least score some points to feel like you could win the game comfortably. And I thought for the most part in the second quarter today, Georgia responded offensively pretty well. Going to the half with 24 points, going to the half with about 250 total yards. I thought that was a pretty good response. I didn't think it was a perfect day from the Georgia offense. I thought once again from Stetson Bennett there was some good and some bad. I think the good outweighed the bad there. Not a perfect day offensively, but a day in which I thought that Georgia did a pretty good job of responding all the way around. I want to get some more of your comments here. We'll continue to talk about everything that unfolded with that Georgia win against Tennessee a moment ago. You mentioned the personnel switch along the offensive line, Jeff, with what happened with Xavier Truss coming into play right guard. I do think that was a big boost for Georgia. Also a little bit of chatter about what happened to the defensive secondary as well, where
ISO and man coverage and more accurate throw right there. I think Georgia's still kind of the way they're playing defense, man. When they're beat, they're just grabbing dudes. And when you have a defense that can exhaust an offense, which is what they did several times tonight, maybe that's a smart play. Everybody wonders, you're trying to cover a guy, you're going to take that 15-yard penalty rather than the consequences. But again, this is a day where one piece steps aside and another piece rises up. Adam Anderson, big missing piece for this pass rush. You don't feel it though tonight when Channing Kendall gets 3 sacks.
All right, so I know a lot of you are saying that what they're doing back here, these are leaf blowers that are blowing like, loose turf away. I'm hoping they're about to be done. If they're not done, maybe we'll just move the camera or something like that, which would be quite a ride to go on here. But let's see if this finishes up here in a couple of minutes. So if that's irritating with the noise, for some reason it's just louder tonight than it normally is, because this almost always happens. Or on one of these fields, you usually have kind of something going on back there. But this, for some reason tonight, is just a little bit louder. Let's give this a couple more minutes to see if that kind of wraps up. And if not, we'll just move the camera. We'll go inside the stadium and get away from it if we have to. But hopefully they're about done with all this. So y'all bear with us for a couple of minutes, and we'll see if we can move past this here in just a little bit. Lunkin says we can't hear anything. So give me another minute on this. Let's see if this clears up. This is kind of what it is when you're live video, you're down here on the field, you're making the best of the situation. So we're going to let that hopefully get cleared up, and we'll see how that goes. Jeff is now faking another injury in line of what he thinks may have happened tonight with some of these players on this field tonight. So give me a minute on this. We'll see how it goes. I'll see if I can take some more comments here as Jeff continues to fake his injury and try to coalesce here a little bit. All right. JCP asked me about that. Yeah, it's not a hair dryer. It's some leaf blowers behind us. They're cleaning off the field. Hopefully that'll be done in about a minute. Give us a little bit of patience on that.
Working on a new sponsor. That's what we're working on, a new sponsor. It feels like this is the most Augusta nationalist grass being doctored and manicured right now.
I think Nick Chubb wished they would have taken this good care of the field back in 2015. I think he probably wishes that.
And it's not just you folks. There's a line of people that are doing live shots right now and live hits, and we're all fighting the same thing. Obviously,
see, there you go. I think it may be done now. Y'all can hear now, right? There's a lawnmower going. Are they going back down the way now? All right, hey, so let's do this. Let's just go inside the field. We're going to go inside the tunnel here. So bear with us. We're going to walk for a second, and we're going to see if we can do this. I'll hold the microphone. Jeff will move the camera. We're just going to see if we can get away from this. And it won't look as pretty, but maybe it'll sound a lot better. So we're going to walk here a little bit. Get away from this, because they're not going down anytime soon. Good to see folks over here today. Other Georgia fans made their way over here. Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Yeah. Let's see if we can move away here a little bit. Let's see if that's any better. It's probably going to be crooked as all get out, because this is the hilliest place in the world. All right, this is all happening on the fly here just a little bit. Jeff, we're going to move. Let's just move a little bit more. That way we're just farther away from it. It's going to be dark as can be, but let's swing around. Maybe this way right over here.
Put it right there.
Does it have a light right over here?
Yeah.
All right, let's try this right over here. See if we can get a little light. We'll see if we can get away from this. We're now inside the stadium at Neyland Stadium here. This is the great lengths that we go to on live video to make all of this work. So let's ask if folks can hear us better now, and let's see if they can. Let's check in on this. We obviously can't hear anything else. So let's see how it's going. All right, can y'all hear better now?
Can we give them an update on my injury? I was fine. I'll probably be ready to go in the next play or so. Just got a cramp, coach. Just got a cramp.
All right, let's see what people are saying. Let's see. All right, can people hear us better now? It says it's getting a little better. Yeah, so hopefully folks can see us, because it's completely dark inside the tunnel. We can't move that much farther. It's going to be completely dark. Won't be able to see anything. All right, Lonnie Lauderdale says it's much better. I appreciate that. That's good. Michael Carvell says it's a little better. A little better may be about as good as it's going to be, at least when these folks stop here tonight. So we'll take more of your comments, and we'll just roll through, because you know what? That's what professionals do. Mary Martin Corbin says, can you move somewhere else? I don't know if there's anywhere else to move right now. Let's see what else. Patsy Swinney checks in to say 41-17, go Dogs, for sure. Jacob O'Neill says it's a little better. That's good to hear. And Eric Emmett says we can hear good enough. Okay, so at this point in time, why don't we just move back into the regular content, then we'll start talking some Georgia football here once again. To recap kind of what we discussed so far, I really thought the performance of the day belonged to Georgia running back James Cook. 3 different touchdowns. I think we've been waiting to see who would be the playmaker that Georgia really leaned on and trusted when the season was on the line. And I think today you got a little bit of a hint that's going to end up being James Cook. So we talked about that in the early stages here. I also think you end up talking a lot about what this Georgia defense is able to do again today. And when you're lining up against an offense that's going to attack you big play over and over again, they're going to at least attempt to do that to you. They're going to probably hit on a couple. It's very hard to keep somebody to a 0.0 batting average over the course of the entire game. We knew at some point in time, at least I did, we knew at some point in time Tennessee was going to get a couple of things to go for it. That's exactly what happened. They got a couple of those big plays, but I thought the Georgia defense did a marvelous job of responding. And frankly, when you have a guy like Channing Tindall step up and get 3 sacks today, when you have, what Georgia did, just really, Nolan Smith before the injury that had a couple of nice moments. I thought Robert Beals playing obviously an expanded role right now. Thought he had a couple of nice moments. That Georgia did a good job of getting after Hendon Hooker tonight. Hooker's a guy that coming into the game had only thrown 2 interceptions all year long. Threw another one here today. Made a couple of errant passes because they were trying to play so fast that Georgia was eventually able to force them into some errors, and one of those turned into a turnover. I thought, and the scoreboard tells the story, but even beyond that, I thought it was another good day for the Georgia defense as well.
Yeah, you got to mention Quay Walker in the list of all those guys as well. I thought Quay had another fine day. Fighting through a lot of blocks, making a lot of plays on the boundary, sideline to sideline. And Brandon, this is just, remember we talk about this a lot the last 2 or 3 years on the recruiting trail, that battle station, the fully powered Death Star. And what it is Georgia just rotates and moves in, and this is almost a next playmaker up football team. Kendall Milton's still not there in the backfield. You've got a guy like James Cook roll in. What you've done with receivers so far this year with Ladd McConkey, man, we didn't mention A.D. Mitchell yet. A.D. Mitchell had one drive before the first half ended where I thought it looked a lot like G-Day because he was catching every ball, catching them down here, catching them everywhere, and that's a Tennessee native. He comes into this stadium and does some special things in his return. Ladd McConkey makes a catch. Remember, folks, this was where Ladd McConkey grew up wanting to go play college football. He probably would have still chosen Tennessee if they would have offered him, but they never did. And he comes today here as a Georgia Bulldog. I also noticed really early in this game, Georgia had a lot of upper tier personnel covering kicks. Ladd McConkey was covering kicks. A lot of their big time guys were playing on every special team because they knew how important this game was. You saw before this game, I saw demonstrable actions from Georgia's coaches. Glenn Schumann, Dan Lanning, they were in the faces of their guys. They knew that they were going to get a shot in the mouth today from Tennessee, and what they were doing is they were just getting ready. They were saying, all right, it's going to come. We want to get you fired up. Let's get ready to play tonight. And really, I mean, people are going to wonder, is this Georgia's best win? Is it his best overall performance? I think it is. When you have everything that's gone on over the last couple of weeks with Georgia losing playmakers, now they're finding new playmakers, and everybody was wondering if this defense was historic, if this defense was generational, and it took some body blows in that first series. Tennessee marched down that field, rolled down that field. They were attacking Keely Ringo. They were trying to take those one-on-one shots with those deep balls. A couple of them were overthrown. I mean, Tennessee hits one or two of those. Maybe it's a more interesting game, but really, Brandon, this game really swung on the late touchdown in the first half. You go back in at halftime, you tack on another one, and by that point, when it was 31-10, most of the Bronchi top had clocked out.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Craig Plank in our Facebook comment section mentions the recruiting advantage Georgia enjoys in a game like this. We've talked a lot over the last few days about what Georgia's done to Florida in recruiting and really taking players that Florida wanted. When you look at also the fact that Georgia's able to come on the road today, win this game easily, it's that recruiting advantage that Georgia's enjoyed against Tennessee that obviously plays a big role in that. I mean, it's really an embarrassment of riches to think that a guy like Channing Tindall, who played so well today, really plays in a backup reserve role for Georgia. He may be one of the top 3 or 4 interior linebackers in the NFL draft, but he's not really even technically a starter for this Georgia team right now, and it speaks to some of those recruiting wins. Obviously, Quay Walker all over this field. Folks remember the Tennessee hat toss when he signed with Georgia as part of the class 2018.
Is it going by just a minute?
I think I saw that thing sail by here again in just a moment. I don't say that to mock or even taunt. I mean that literally, that when you look at some of these recruiting wins that Georgia has gotten, even guys that are kind of playing a complementary or kind of a role player type role for Georgia, these are guys that if they were in a place like Knoxville, they might be in a starring role there. And
earlier,
the presence of those guys on the Georgia sideline, on the Georgia, as a part of the Georgia game plan, and not doing that for Tennessee is obviously a huge reason why the Dogs were successful as they were.
So I think about something recruits tell me right now about Glenn Schumann when I think of what you're mentioning there with Channing Tindall and Quay Walker. Remember, those guys were 2018 recruits. Those guys came in with the Justin Fields, Zamir White, Jamari Salyer class, and they waited. They waited their turn. And recruits tell me now that I trust that when I'm ready, Glenn Schumann will have me out there, and then I'll be ready to go and ready to ball. And really, it makes people wonder about the temptation or the flirtation about what Georgia could have had sooner, but really they had Monty Rice there that whole time, and they watched and they learned and they matured and they lifted weights and they got in that film room. And now when they're ready to roll and they get out here in these big SEC stages, they look like showstopper players. They look like naturals. And Georgia has so many guys in that box. And they found something else in this program today. I think this football team, as it's got these championship aspirations, I think they found a little bit something more about their football team tonight.
Brandon Griffin says that Brock Bowers is the beast, and I think that's true. Obviously, that was true at the very beginning of the season. He's been really targeted in a major way for Georgia all season long. I think that's continuing tonight. Georgia was very clever in how he used him tonight, and just really an impressive guy. This has become a very dependable playmaker for Georgia in this offense right now, and the fact that Bowers also played as big a role as he did tonight, that shouldn't be lost as well.
Yeah. We talked about the one catch he almost made. He had a couple other plays he made. Brandon, what about the late end around in the second half? You remember that where he takes a reverse?
Very creative.
And
very
it was
creative.
like a jet sweep again with Brock Bowers, and he punished some dudes. I got to remember, one of the things I wanted to mention when I saw first team personnel, elite Georgia impact personnel, I saw Brock Bowers covering a punt tonight.
Yeah, he got a great Bowers had a terrific tackle on punt coverage. So that's the Georgia way. You're going to bring in elite recruits. They're going to put up highlights. But they're still going to be asked to make plays on special teams. Sonny Michel was, a household name across the country for Georgia 2017. He's out there tackling punters, or punt return guys, and doing things in special teams for you. That's just what you're going to be asked to do in a place like Georgia.
Yeah, the kicking game was really steady tonight, Brandon. I think they had a couple of spots where I think they had, when they moved the lead from 21 to 24 to 27, and then they kept moving things along, and 41 to 17, Brandon. I think that's the thing. What goes through your mind? You wonder about, well, what could have been better? I know you would have wanted to see the point total around 13 because that was a big deal. Keeping everybody under 13 points the entire season, and now Brandon, Georgia's earned themselves a little bit of comfort zone here. They've got Tech. Tech lost again. They're probably going to be another 3-win team this year. But they got Charleston Southern and Tech coming up, and all those bodies that are a little bit achy, they're going to get some time to rest before the real meat of the schedule happens. And it's kind of crazy, Brandon. As far as this season can go, there's only 5 games left.
Yeah, it's amazing. Marvin Miles on the YouTube side of things brings up the play of Stetson Bennett tonight. I thought there was a lot to commend from Bennett here tonight. I thought that Bennett had a chance to really answer all doubters tonight with the way that he played. And I thought from a passing standpoint, he probably came up just a little bit short from being able to do that. But in totality, I thought he played a good game. I thought he orchestrated the Georgia offense very well. He clearly showed you why his legs are valuable. That was clearly something he demonstrated. And he also made some big throws there, too. And there were a couple of moments where I thought, man, if he punches it through here, he's going to eliminate any doubt about what he's capable of doing in this Georgia offense. And admittedly, there were a couple of times when I felt like maybe he stopped just short of being able to do that. But overall, I thought that Bennett probably played championship football for Georgia today.
Yeah, this is one of his. You put that up there a little bit with the Auburn game. Again, the hostile environment of how these guys played. I thought the touchdown run he had, Brandon, was very much a big impact play. I think I counted 3 third down conversions. I know folks on all sorts of platforms and all sorts of airwaves like to tout those stats that Stetson Bennett cannot convert those third down throws, can convert those third down passes for Georgia. But he has converted a whole lot of sticks, a whole lot of third down tries with his legs at least 2 times tonight.
CDOG talking about what would have happened if JT Daniels had been in the game, and obviously Daniels is an accomplished quarterback there as well. But when you see the way this game unfolded, the fact that Stetson did keep a few plays alive with his legs, and as I said before, a couple of times used that to turn up the field and get positive yardage there. Sometimes I kind of wonder if at times we have a tendency to overrate Stetson's running ability, but today that was not an overrated thing at all. Today, that was a big part of this Georgia offense. There were a couple of times that with his legs, Stetson really gave Georgia something he otherwise would not have had, and it's fair to point out that is one of the strengths that he probably possesses in comparison to JT.
Yeah, one of the opinions, I know this is not a salacious opinion, Brandon, but I've kind of harbored it for the last 4 or 5 weeks now, is, sometimes these coaches, if you look at what Dan Lanning's doing defensively, if you look at what Todd Monken's doing offensively, is there a chance out there, folks, when you can just sit there and go, maybe these guys know what they're talking about. The measure of a great team I see tonight is, maybe this is what a great team looks like for the Georgia Bulldogs. You're going to have folks complaining that James Cook needs more touches. You're going to have folks complaining that, A.B. Mitchell needs more touches. Cook should be the featured back. Does Georgia have the right passer in the pocket? Do they have the right complete national title winning quarterback in there? When you got a really good team, this is a luxury of having a lot of these options.
Yeah, it's our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. We're now kind of almost in the bowels of the Neyland Stadium here. Of course, we're looking forward to be back in Athens next Saturday for a show again, once again at the UGA Bookstore. Looking forward to being there and being a part of that. But happy to be at Neyland Stadium here tonight, talking about a 41-17 win for the Dogs against Tennessee. And of course, as you get ready to make your way through the championship season that's still on its way, potentially for UGA, you want to look good when you do so. That's what that apparel from the UGA Bookstore gives you a chance to do. All there at the first floor. I'm talking about Peter Millar, some of the exclusive stuff like the UGA 10 line from Peter Millar. You only find that at the UGA Bookstore, so make sure you check that out. Of course, the Nike coaches gear, the same kind of stuff you see them wearing on the sidelines. You can see that there at the UGA Bookstore. Vineyard Vine, Southern Tide, all kinds of great apparel makers are making good-looking stuff. They're making that for you there at the UGA Bookstore. They're selling it there for you at the UGA Bookstore, so make sure you check that out. UGABookstore.com, that's the website, or just go by and see them in Athens. Hopefully you'll go by and see them next Saturday and come by and see us when we're there for the postgame show. But you can do your shopping anytime right there at the UGA Bookstore, so make sure you check all of that out. I also want to check out a couple of things here. Kirby Smart, updates from him in the postgame locker room here. Here's some of what Kirby Smart had to say a little earlier. Jalen Carter, John Fitzpatrick, Warren Erickson are among those that were sick with the flu. So Erickson played, was eventually replaced. Fitzpatrick was in some tonight there as well. Jalen Carter was on the field at least some, I believe. So those were guys that did play some, but apparently impacted by illness. Carter apparently had over 100-degree fever, and it had to be pulled at the half because of his temperature per Kirby Smart. Said a handful of guys were sick. Also, Kirby Smart, he said, we have a defensive staff that burnt the midnight oil to prepare for this game. And I mean, there's no question about this, that Josh Heupel, the Tennessee coach, is gonna put some pressure on you with his, what is it?
There's a lot of quotes coming in post-game and stuff like that. Listen to this. If this is not a perfect game you got to smile about, listen to this one, folks. Kirby said in his post-game thoughts, or maybe it was Jamie Erdahl, he said he had a chance to talk to Peyton Manning before the game, and it was about his son. He wants me to recruit his son. Peyton Manning, here in Tennessee on Rocky Top, wants Kirby Smart to recruit his son. If that is not a flex, Brandon Adams, I don't know what is.
There you go on that. What about the idea of what this Georgia defensive staff had to do to get ready for everything that Josh Heupel was going to throw at them tonight? We heard Kirby Smart mentioning that a moment ago, or at least we read the quote of Kirby Smart talking about that a moment ago.
Yeah, Georgia, they were able to move the ball, and it was a bend but don't break feel with a lot of these drives, but it wasn't a bend but don't break, it was a bend and then snuff it out. There were a lot of plays where Tennessee was down there towards the end zone. Brandon, I must mention this. I've seen this about a dozen times when a team is down there at the end zone and the quarterback's rolling around, and really they just airmail that thing into some pocket of the end zone, which would take somewhat combination of Antonio Gates and Randy Moss to make that touchdown catch. But it always seems like Georgia's knocking down, or they're covering some pass that can't even be completed because that's all they can find. That's the only window they can find rolling around. And I mean, I mentioned this on my social media account on Twitter. It's about time to start looking at this defense as whatever we want to call it. But this is a unit, again, with these guys moving in and out. All these guys that were sick, Jalen Carter, 100-degree fever. And they find different playmakers to get it done. And it's a Zion load here. It's these guys coming in like the move with Chris Smith and Dan Jackson. You want to talk about being special. You can find a way to be special when a lot of those special guys aren't on the field and still keep it going. And that's what I really like about this Georgia defense.
A couple of historic notes for Georgia here tonight. Going unbeaten in SEC play for the first time since 1982. That's a big deal. Kirby Smart talking to Jamie Erdahl from CBS about that, saying that's just the tip of the iceberg for Georgia. We're not going to celebrate long. We've got to clean up, a lot to get ready for, but I'm proud of them. So he's obviously acknowledging that feat. Also tonight marks the 14th consecutive win for Georgia. You have to go back to the end of the 2007, into the start of the 2008 season to find a stretch where Georgia's, even back then, you're talking about 11 consecutive games. With a 14-game winning streak here for the Dawgs, you're talking about quite a performance all the way around there on that. Continuing to see some updates on the injury front here for UGA. Obviously, we talked about Warren Erickson there a little bit earlier. Also, Nakobe Dean tonight, 11 tackles, 2 tackles for loss and a sack. Very impressive. That's a great thing to be able to see. And Dean's really putting together, I mean, what has to be considered kind of a Buckus Award winner type year. He was labeled with that next Roquan tab when he came in here, and that's always such an unfair thing to try to stick on a player because it's so hard to live up to what Roquan Smith did in 2017. This is a different kind of defense because, frankly, that 2017 defense that Roquan played in was a little bit more of a one-man show. There was really, with all due respect to other guys, and some of those are still playing in the NFL, there was really no one close to matching Roquan's level on that 2017 defense. That's not true here in this 2021 situation. You've got multiple guys who are playing at like an all-SEC, certainly all-American level in some cases. So Dean doesn't stand out from the crowd the way that Roquan would in 2017. But I think he's proving that to beat Tab with a kind of a next Roquan type comparison, that's not completely out of bounds given the way that he's playing right now.
Brandon, let's have fun 10-0 broadcasting right here, streaming right now. You got a snarl face? You got a snarl face? Can you make a snarl face?
I don't know.
So where I'm going with this, and I'll get to it, is I saw before the game, I always like to look at some of the guys that I've known for a while, and I kind of see where they're at. And I can just tell by the looks on their faces. And Nakobe Dean, when he came out of the tunnel tonight, Brandon, he had a snarl. He had one of those, like one of those, what is it, Burgess Meredith and Rocky, when he's like, give me one of those snarls or whatever. Yeah. That's what Nakobe Dean had. And when I see he arrived in one of those bad moves, I knew Georgia's defense was going to be in a good spot and be able to play very well. And again, I think I saw some of the love on Twitter from Gary Danielson. I think Gary Danielson basically anointed Nakobe Dean as the best linebacker in college football today. And this is what makes this team special. When you watch these guys, and me being kind of a reporter, a guy that tries to look at the big picture, there's not just one guy that Georgia fans are going to be sitting in an RV after a big game or sitting at a tailgate going, you know what, that guy was special. You mentioned Roquan a minute ago. Well, people are going to start with Jordan Davis. They're going to have Nakobe Dean on there. They're going to talk about Jalen Carter. I mean, Devontae Wyatt again. There's a lot of guys on that defense that they're going to be compared to by a lot of great players. It's going to change. It's going to be, is it the next Nakobe? Is it the first Nakobe? That's how great these guys are going right now. Folks, I'm running through the math in my head as I'm trying to talk all this out right now. I think this is the longest win streak in Georgia football history.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that my same way because, I mean, honestly, I can't remember every game Georgia's ever played, but if you go back to the early 80s, you think about, go undefeated in 1980, but lose early in the 1981 season in Clemson, win games after that.
79 season, it was a 65-5-6 season,
yeah.
So they didn't stack more than 2 or 3 wins together on that perfect 12-0 around it.
Georgia would have lost the final game of the 81 season, leading to an unbeaten in 82. But then also lost that bowl game there, so you didn't have really a wraparound there for either 81 or 82, leading into an 83 against Auburn when they finally lost. So, I don't know they've had a longer winning streak than this. They may. I'm not saying they don't, but I can't think of one off the top of my head that's been longer than this.
I mean, because you'd have to go, here's how it would be tricky, Brandon. One of them might be lurking somewhere where they finish a game with finish the season with 4 straight wins or something like that, where they don't go to a bowl, and then they rip off 7 wins in a row, something like that.
But there are not a ton of 8, 9-0 starts for Georgia. And that's the other thing too, is that to get this deep in the season and still be undefeated, it's a little bit of a feat in and of itself there on that front there too. More your comments continue to roll through here. A lot of folks talking. Jim McLaughlin says, stop complaining. We're 10-0 and ranked #1 in the nation. Yeah, I really have no patience whatsoever for anybody that can't be happy. It doesn't mean that you can't talk about where Georgia needs to improve. For instance, I went back and forth on Twitter tonight a couple of times. A lot of folks who have some serious questions with the Georgia offensive line. I think that's a legit and fair question to ask. I think that's the kind of thing that you got to figure out. What does Georgia have there? What was going on there? What did you see there? But I also think that you have to give some credit there as well for the fact that Georgia mitigated that a little bit. I feel the same way about quarterback or the same way about anything else. But if you're going to obsess over an imperfection, some sort of blight with Georgia right now, you're literally missing what's happening in front of you. This team's a blast to watch. They're going into opposing stadiums, hated rivals like Auburn and Tennessee. They're literally running the opposing fans out of the stadium. That happened again tonight. If you're missing that and you're not enjoying it, the problem's not with Georgia. The problem is with you, and I mean that literally.
Amen, brother. I mean, it's a point where if you guys were around in 1980, you're probably talking about, Georgia's not feeding the ball enough to Clarence Gay. They're not feeding the ball enough to Lindsey Scott enough. Lindsey Scott needs more touches. One thing that comes to mind here, Brandon, is I dug up this fact in the fourth quarter. James Cook ties his career high in rushing yards with 104. First of all, good people out there. Did you guys know he'd already had a 100-yard rushing game in his career? You have to go back last year to South Carolina. He also had 2 touchdowns in that game and 104 yards, but good gosh almighty, Joe Friday, does not James Cook look so much better than whatever version you saw right now, that one in the 2020 season?
Let me also say this. I cannot believe they are still doing those. They've been doing those leap blowers for an hour. Like, what are they getting off the field at this point in time? I mean, as I said before, how many Georgia players have come here and seen their careers almost come to an end? I wish they'd have taken this good a care of the grass back then.
I think these guys are getting paid by the hour. And basically they're here probably to make sure when Tennessee, I would say that obviously I wonder if Tennessee won if they would have the broadcasters doing this, but basically they're like, it kind of feels like, you go through a highway construction project and there's like 19 guys watching 3 guys do work. That's kind of what it feels like over here.
I mean, we all know that Tennessee blows, but this is ridiculous. All right, let's get more of your comments. Let's see what else. By the way, if you want to know why everybody's got a help wanted sign out right now, it's because Tennessee's got everybody in the stadium employed, taking care of the field.
Okay,
right
I'll play along. Brandon, what this is Tennessee being so concerned. They saw so many players falling down on their turf during the middle of the game, and they wanted to make sure that they fixed any holes and patches in the turf so those guys wouldn't slip again.
Maybe you're right about that. Scotty Barnes says, great to be a dog. Appreciate that. Somebody said, Sheree Byron says, why do we have complaining fans? So I'll defend the so-called complaining fans here for a moment. Like, I do get the idea that to win a national championship, that you've got to, I don't want to say perfect because no team can be perfect, but you got to be really buttoned up. You got to be really, really tightened up. And I think a lot of Georgia fans have seen a team that was kind of led by defense more so than offense go into a postseason situation before the 2019 SEC title game comes to mind on this. And I think a lot of Georgia fans say, well, that didn't really work that time. Here's what I'm going to tell you, and this is true whether you acknowledge it being true or not. This offense is better than an offense was. They scored 40-something points again tonight. They've scored 30 or more points every game since week 1. Georgia was struggling to score 21 points in 2019. Folks, the numbers are on the internet. It's not that hard to find. You can do the comparison shopping for yourself. Here's the second thing. When you go back and watch even like the 2018 version of the defense, 2018, 2019, to a degree even 2017 as well, even though the end of season results were great for that team. What you're talking about with Georgia there at the time, these were stingy defenses. They weren't giving up very many yards. These were not giving up very many points, but they also weren't particularly impactful. You would have been sacking Hendon Hooker as many times as Georgia did tonight in 2017, 2018, 2019. Those defenses just weren't built that way. So one of the reasons why I am more confident this version of Georgia can go into the college football playoff and win the dadgum thing, even though recent Georgia teams that kind of echo what this Georgia team is currently doing weren't able to do that, is because they're better on both sides of the ball. It's not just good defense, it's great defense. And it's not the kind of offense that left meager results for you in 2019. It's better offense than that. Is it the best offense in the country? No, it's not. Georgia's not the best offensive team in the country right now. Is it the best offense that Kirby Smart has had since he's been here? I don't think there's any doubt that's true.
There's no doubt. And everybody wonders, I mean, look at Oklahoma today. They had the brilliant quarterback. They had the high-flying profile coordinator, play caller, Lincoln Riley, head coach. And what happens? They have a quarterback change, man. Did you see that
another
thing?
one. Yeah, they went back to Spencer Rattler again.
And the same Oklahoma fans that said we want Caleb, we're now saying we want Spencer in the second quarter.
Hold this a second.
Sure.
You got to keep talking.
I mean, I know. I'm just so.
My hands are so cold I can't type on my phone.
You want me to throw this microphone over there at the Brandon? The leaf blowers are stopping, and apparently those gas.
They're probably only taking a break. I just haven't been on DogNation.com yet. I got to take some comments.
So, again,
my hands are so cold I can't hardly type.
Folks, I want to tell you how loud it was, because everybody remembers what it's like in Sanford when Georgia tries to get up to 105, 110. Well, Tennessee was loud tonight. This was a rocking crowd. They were trying to will their team to something special tonight. Maybe trying to burn down Rocky Top, burn down Knoxville, and knock off and upset the #1 team in the land. But I'm going to tell you right now, this team right now looks like it's upset-proof. Somebody's going to have to be functioning on all cylinders to beat the way Georgia's capable of winning many different ways on a Saturday night.
All right, it's our Dog Nation postgame show. We're brought to you by the UGA Bookstore. We're here at Neyland Stadium. We've kind of moved more towards the inside here a little bit because the leaf blowers from hell just will not stop. Ooh. There's a tiny blade of grass somewhere. They're trying to get cleaned off this field, and so we're trying to run from those. I do want to take some of your comments there at dognation.com. We appreciate folks checking in at dognation.com and on the Dog Nation app there as well. Matthews1 says, do you have any update on injuries? So, Jeff, let's kind of run through a little bit of these. Let me start with one we haven't really talked about. Do you have anything for me on this? Because I know there was a lot of chatter during the game about Jordan Davis, who at times was seen on the sideline. At one point in time, he did go down with an injury. To be honest with you, I didn't know if that was one of those 2021 injuries where he goes down, play stops, he hops back up, and everything's fine. He came back in the game shortly after that. But then there were moments where Davis was on the sideline for a long time. I don't have any indication that was anything other than not obvious running situation for Tennessee. Substitution stuff makes it hard to get him back in the game. But some folks were asking, was Davis hurt? I don't have any indication that he was. It almost seemed like a sort of a flow of the game type thing today.
Yeah, I saw him. One of the things I try to do for our crew down here while I'm down here on the sidelines and not just taking pictures is when somebody's injured or somebody goes in a tent, what I do is I kind of get a bird dog and I go down there and try to see what's going on. Jordan didn't look like he was in any sort of pain. At the end of the game, he was kind of sitting next to Trayvon Walker on the Georgia bench on those aluminum portable bleachers, looking very much like Thanos. If you guys have heard that joke earlier this year from me, him and Trayvon Walker were kind of very satisfied. It looked like they were very well fed. They ate tonight, and it was a job well done by the Georgia defensive front. One stat I want to bring up, Brandon, I saw this on my social media feed. So there's only 4 Georgia players in the last 20 years that have had 100 yards rushing in a game, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown in a game. Can you name those players?
I can.
Nick Chubb, Todd Gurley, Sony Michel, and now James Cook.
Some questions coming in here, something we addressed a little earlier, but I want to go back to it again because I forgot some folks who were just joining us. Clint Darnell asking about Nolan Smith, his injury situation. What can you tell us more about that? You told us this earlier, but let's go back and give this for folks who may be joining us now for the first time.
So it looked like he was an elbow injury. He came off. He immediately had ice on his elbow. He went inside the tent, then he went inside the locker room. He came back. At the end of the game, he was chilling. He was next to the turbo propane heater, that jet propulsion type heater that was in the middle of Georgia's sideline. He was fine. And then in the scrum afterward, when everybody's trying to take pictures, what you can hear is Nolan talking to a lot of Georgia players, Georgia coaches, and also guys that he knew on the Tennessee, mutual peers, friends on the Tennessee team. Everybody was asking him if it was all right. And I think I heard Nolan say the phrase, "I'm straight," a couple of times in terms of his elbow. He appears to be fine.
Tracy Burgess also mentioning the Florida Gators today. How about this performance from, they can't get away from these Bulldogs. Samford gave Florida everything it wanted. Some embarrassing video coming out from that of Florida really celebrating that locker room when it was all said and done. You got Dan Mullen with some absolutely atrocious quotes about, every win is worth celebrating. It's disrespectful to the game not to celebrate a win.
Did he say they had more yards than Samford? Did he say that tonight?
This was not a good day for Dapper Dan. I'm just telling you that right now. So as sweet as it is to see Georgia get a big win against Tennessee, even sweeter to know that things really get worse for Florida. At one point in time, it seemed like Gators might actually lose to Samford, which obviously would have ended Dan Mullen's career on the spot. And if you can lose your, job after a win, this may be the kind of thing that I would say brings Mullen's tenure to an end at Florida, maybe sooner rather than later.
Do you think he's the head coach next week?
I think next week, because they didn't lose, but this is the kind of thing that people are going to file away. People are just going to remember this. There are proud boosters associated with every SEC program, and they don't like to see a bunch of hooting and hollering and celebrating for a win against Samford. And they don't like to hear Dan Mullen shrug it off and say a win is a win when you're giving up, 50? Y'all know the score better than I do, but they gave up 50-plus points to Samford. I believe that Samford had 40 in the first half or something crazy like that.
42 points in the first half. That's the most the Florida team had ever given up in one half at Florida Field and Ben Hill Griffith Stadium. 70-52 is the final, and that is not pretty for those defensive rankings.
That's indeed true. Just a few more comments here as it continues to roll in. Dan Patrick says, what's going to take to show our fan base that Kirby Smart knows what he's doing? Here's the other thing that, Dan, I hope the Georgia fans know about Kirby Smart right now, and this means something to me. This is not just something that you say. I think that Kirby Smart's having a really fun time coaching this team right now. I think that he really enjoys the vibe that's created here, and I think that he's doing everything he can to make sure that continues. I think that's something that he wants to do, and I think that right now, he knows being a working with this locker room. He knows what's going on there. And right now, I think he's having a blast coaching this football team. And that's the kind of energy that I'd love to see Georgia fans feed off of as well.
I mean, I think you said it earlier when you were kind of preaching a little bit, Brandon. I think this is a glory type season. This is a glory type year. This is what you guys have been following all those recruiting classes for. This is what you guys have been going into these stadiums like this and wondering, going in there with confidence and then maybe getting the confidence eaten away. This is a team, this is a program that is a fully realized championship contender. It is a juggernaut team right now in college football. We've been through 10 weeks. Georgia is clearly the #1 team in the land, and I don't think it's really close.
Texas Dawg mentions Alabama, the potential matchup in the SEC championship. I mean, I think one of the things you were reminded of today, because obviously Tennessee at times had some success with the pass rush. I think it is a little bit of a reminder that, when you, and by the way, Alabama's not qualified yet for the SEC championship game, but if you kind of look ahead and put the Tide in that spot for right now, I think you are reminded that that Georgia offensive line is going to face some challenges if that matchup occurs. Obviously, figuring out a way to block Will Anderson, the outstanding individual pass rusher for the Crimson Tide, that's an entirely different task compared to what you dealt with today. But at times, Tennessee did have some pressure getting after Stetson Bennett and getting in the backfield there. It's a reminder that whatever's happening along the offensive line, getting Jamari Sayer back healthy, of course, figuring out who your best four are beyond that this is a very important thing for Georgia right now, because the offensive line may be my biggest concern for UGA coming off a nice win today, and certainly a very pretty final score for sure. But if you're asking, hey, what's an open issue for you? What are you still a little bit concerned about? I talked about this on Friday on Dog Nation Daily. The issue with the Georgia offensive line is certainly one of those.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, you look about it, and, they have all the players in the world, Brandon. I think I've made the point on the Dog Nation forum when we're trying to discuss how hard recruiting is going to be for the 2022 cycle for those elite type offensive linemen. I think I count 5 former high school All-Americans that really aren't playing. You saw Xavier Truss play a lot tonight in that flu interim for Warren Erickson. Warren Erickson was one of those guys we mentioned earlier that Xavier Truss came in really early for Warren Erickson, and now we know that the reason why he wasn't maybe playing up to his optimal state was because of flu-like symptoms. One thing that crossed across my timeline, Brandon, that I wanted to make sure to bring to your attention, Ole Miss is currently up on Texas A&M 13-0.
So there you go. You're watching that. Texas A&M is a team that right now, with a win out and with an Auburn win against Alabama, they would have a chance to win the SEC West, would win the SEC West under their circumstances. So they're at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. Of course, ESPN's College Game Day was in Oxford today, so obviously a big environment there around the Grove. And so right now, getting that win. It's our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. I should say they have the lead. We'll see if that continues. We're live here at Neyland Stadium. Georgia gets a big win against Tennessee, and I want to honor right now James Cook. We talked about him a little earlier. Let's also make him our Marco's Pizza moment of the game. Cook 3 touchdowns tonight. He was on the ground. He was through the air. He really got it done in a big way for the Dogs here today. So congratulations to James Cook, our Marco's Pizza moment of the game. And of course, if you're settling in and watching a bunch of sports, football on Saturdays, Sundays, everything else, Marco's Pizza goes great with all of that. You can get great savings, including a large one-topping pizza for $9.99. You can find it in the Marco's app. You can find it on Marcos.com. Check that out today. Enjoy yourself some delicious Marco's Pizza online at Marcos.com, the Marco's app. Take advantage of those great savings. And of course, congratulations to James Cook with 3 touchdowns here today. Go back where we kind of started the show a little earlier, that to me, that's a huge takeaway for Georgia, that all of a sudden now, if you're playing a game like Alabama in the SEC Championship, or if you're playing if it was a long shot Texas A&M that makes the SEC Championship college football playoff, who can you really lean on, rely on offensively? I think James Cook showed you tonight that he might be that guy, that he really might be Georgia's most dynamic offensive player right now. And I say that with apologies to some of the guys who've shown out for Georgia over the course of the season, but Cook may be the guy that Georgia leans on down the stretch.
Got enough dynamic elements to his game. He's the guy that, remember, he was a 5-star on Rivals.com. He was a top 40 overall prospect, and when a guy like that hangs around to his senior year, look how he's gotten a little bit better, and he's really refined a lot of areas of his game. Brendan, he's running well between the tackles now. He's a guy that can kind of take the pounding inside. But when he wants to veer outside, he's got a gear that can get out there. He's very patient. He can catch the ball. I thought it was a brilliant throw in the corner where Stetson Bennett found James Cook on that over-the-shoulder catch right there as well. And we got to say this 100 times because it's worth it. That was James Cook's best game as a Georgia Bulldog.
I think that may be right. Something else, I don't know if we mentioned this or not, but I want to make sure that we do. Podlesny has 2 field goal attempts today, makes both those. You know, statistically speaking, he's been strong on the year. There have been some concerns because he has missed a few kicks here and now, and that's one of those things Georgia fans have had their attention on. I thought today you put Hot Pot in a situation where he was trying more pressure kicks than for the most part he has this season, trying to make field goals in an otherwise close game. And so I thought, you know, for a lot of Georgia fans who maybe had some concerns about that, seeing Podlesny come through with a couple of field goals today is one of those things you probably enjoy too.
Yeah, I think we got to mention this, Brandon, just the flow of the game. Tennessee takes a 7-0 lead. Georgia ties it. Tennessee then makes it 10-7. And Brandon, I think the game goes, Georgia rolls off 34 unanswered points, and they were up 41-10 at that point before Tennessee scored a point again. Eviscerating, suffocating, extinguishing defense. That's what you want. When Georgia combine that defense with some offense again. And Brandon, this team, with all its warts and all the things it's not supposedly, seemingly not installing or not playing and not functioning right, they're scoring 40 points a whole lot of times.
Yeah, they are. I've scored 30 or more points in every game since the season opener, and more than 40 several times there as well. Final run through our comment section. Big thanks to the UGA Bookstore for making all this possible. As we said before, not only will we be at the UGA Bookstore next week for the home finale against Charleston Southern, but a lot of big autograph guests going to be stopping by there as well. The last time Georgia had a home game, there was a huge list of autograph signings, and this upcoming week's going to be no different on that. So check out UGABookstore.com for more details on exactly who's going to be there. Long list of Georgia legends who stop by each and every game week, and this week will be no different. Of course, I said before, the Peter Millar, the Nike coaches gear, the Southern Tide, the Tommy Bahama, all the great looking apparel with the UGA gear. The UGA Bookstore's got it all, and you can stop by and do some great shopping there and get ready for a big run for the Dogs in the month of December, or get that perfect gift for that person on your holiday shopping list. Obviously, Dog fans will always love good-looking UGA gear, and the UGA Bookstore's got plenty of that. So final run through the comment section. We'll get ready to wrap up here on a winning night for the Georgia Bulldogs at Neyland Stadium, 41-17 against the Tennessee Vols. That score just kind of rolls off the tongue. Very fun indeed. Dilly says, yes, our offense is a lot better than last year's, and it is. The numbers speak for themselves on this. The consistency with which it's shown up kind of speaks for itself on this. I don't think there's any disputing that whatsoever. Let's get a couple more here. A lot of comments kind of rolling in here, folks. Barry J weighing in here, appreciate that. Jerry Dawgs fan, talking about Nakobe Dean also for that Butkus Award. Yeah, it's just been that kind of season for Dean. I mean, I don't know if he's going to win it or not. Some of these awards can be a little bit unpredictable. The fact that Jordan Davis is not a finalist for the Lombardi Trophy is the silliest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. So you can't really predict a lot of times how these awards are going to go. But obviously, Nakobe has played at a Butkus-like level for Georgia, and he has made the comparisons to Roquan Smith not seem out of bounds.
Brandon, we got an update. We've learned that the leaf blowers came trepidatiously way too close to the Georgia locker room, and Nakobe just wiped them out for us, man. That's kind of the way the night goes. They can even take down the leaf blowers from Hayes. Is that what you call them? I want us to say this, folks. Lots of comments. We love the interaction. We love your perspective because it kind of lets us know what the pulse of Dog Nation is feeling. But do me the small courtesy of the favor, good friends out there. Take a second. Just soak this in. Soak it in for what it is. This is the Georgia football team you guys always wanted. And it's right here. It's right here. Where's it going to go? How far is it going to go? We're certainly going to find out. But right here on a Saturday night in Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, Tennessee, this is everything you ever wanted from a Georgia football team.
So I'm thankful for that. I'm also thankful, as Richard Sheffield pointed out in our comment section a moment ago, I didn't get hit by a mustard bottle tonight, didn't get hit by a golf ball tonight, all that kind of stuff worked out pretty well there too. Now the night's still young, who knows how it finishes off, but at least for now I haven't been hit by any of that kind of debris or any of that kind of shrapnel here thus far. Anything else before you, let's try to get one more kind of round over here at dognation.com. We'll get ready to roll out of here, out of that. Dog Dad 214's having a good time tonight. He's having a really good time. Alan A. also mentions Channing Tindall again. No fault bringing that back up. What a night it was for Tindall. 3 sacks for him. Impressive all the way around. That's great to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Sometimes my phone just keeps buzzing because everybody's like reacting and telling me what's going on. I mean, again, this is a team. This is a resume. This is a program that is. I mean, it is. What's that old game we always used to play? Growing up with the coin-operated arcades, Mortal Kombat. Brandon, you played that, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I mean, this was another finish him type game.
Finish him.
And I mean, we're going to call it a flawless victory. I think in the SEC, this resembles pretty much a flawless victory with the way Georgia had to do it. With a lot. I mean, there's always, folks. Listen. Let's look at this for a second. There's a lot of reasons every week why Georgia should not play at its best. The distractions of the last few weeks, the guys. Georgia lost Arian Smith. The unfortunate situation that's surrounded one of their best pass rushers on the team. And I mean, this team just digs down and finds another guy, and it's like, you know what? This guy's really good too, and now everybody's going to say, where's this guy been? Why doesn't this guy play more? It's just what a great football team looks like, folks.
All right, we're getting ready to wrap up here tonight. Thanks for being with us for our Dog Nation post-game show. Thanks to the UJ Bookstore for making it all possible. Big thanks to Mike Carvel back in Atlanta, who's keeping us on the air here. Thanks for all of you, your comments, your participation, and for just watching. A lot of you, most of you, 99% of you just kind of tune in and kind of watch it, listen to what everybody has to say. So we appreciate you doing that most of all. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your weekend. I'll see you back here Monday for Dog Nation Daily. We'll talk more about everything that unfolded here in Knoxville and what Kirby Smart had to say with Georgia players, thought about their win, and where Georgia goes from here. Ranked number 1, looking to get better. That's a good place to be. And that's what Dog Nation is going to keep on watching as we roll on here. We'll sign off for now, though, for our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UJ Bookstore. We appreciate you being with us, and we'll see you again next time.